Here, I'll go ahead and start now.
Sure. Hi, Professor.
Hey, Professor.
You're on mute at the moment.
Forgot it starts up in mute. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Well.
How are you?
Thanks.
Great. Well, at last we meet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, after all these correspondence and yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
So what's the plan?
Okay.
So I'm starting the screen share right now. So we're gonna start. Hold on one second. Get the script. So we'll be introducing the workshop. Ernesto and I will be introducing ourselves as well as introducing you. Hold on one second. I'm trying to get this thing back open. And then we'll pass it off to you, and you can present your lecture. And then we'll have a 5-minute Q&A right after. Then after that, we'll be going into our topic. As I was telling you, it'll be the Hero's Journey Monomyth derived from Jason Campbell's book, Hero with 1,000 Faces. Then after that, we'll be sending everybody into a 15-minute breakout room where they'll do this little activity where they'll incorporate their own stories that they've been working on into this sort of hero's journey. Okay.
And I sort of tried to make my PowerPoint about the heroic things that people that journalism covers. So
awesome.
Hopefully that'll fit in nicely.
Great. I definitely think it will. And let me go ahead and make you co-host, just so you should be able to share your screen.
Great.
Cool. Okay. There we go. Then, Mark, do you remember how we were able to share our screens last time? Oh, I think I got it here.
Also, John, I think at this time is a good time to hit security and say enable the waiting room so that when people start coming, they don't just join us midway through our conversation.
Very true. Okay.
But people won't start coming until like the last 3 minutes. I think everyone's getting comfortable with, sliding in at the last second now.
Yeah, most of my students show up literally in the last 10 seconds because they've got to figure it out. And some of them have programs that automatically log them in.
Oh, really? I didn't even know.
Nice.
Yeah. You can actually have a program that makes it look like you're being active in the session. It will cause your mute to go on and off at random intervals and make it look like you're actually there. And in fact, you're not.
Huh. That's interesting.
That was just a matter of time. I think.
But what else do they have to do? Like, where do they have to be?
I've had people with all sorts of excuses. You call them for a question and they don't answer, and you realize that there's nobody there.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
I mean, because I think professors now also understand if something comes up and you have to be in a meeting with someone else, a lot of understanding. So I don't know what. We're all adjusting to this. So, okay, well, that's one way to.
Yeah, one way is to just have a program.
Yeah.
You're sort of a bot. So, the hero's journey.
There we go. I need to figure out how I did this yesterday, just so it's a little bit more seamless. Hold on one sec. There it is. Okay. 1 second. And then, Ernesto, do you have any of the our script, that one page we were both working on, the Google Doc? I'm just trying to find it. Cool. Could you just go ahead and copy and paste that link into the chat? I guess now would be fine, just so they'll have it when they come in. I'll make sure I have it too.
Yeah.
All right. I also have it. All right. Let's see. All right. Can you guys see this pretty well?
Yes.
It's pretty good.
John, did you enable the waiting room?
I did.
Okay.
Okay. And they'll just be able to do that. It'll just make them wait on its own.
Yeah, and you'll start getting notifications saying that so-and-so joined the waiting room, and then and you can even send a message to people in the waiting room saying we're going to open it up right at 1.
Great. Okay. Sounds good.
So Mark, is that the where is it? It's in Finland, right? The opera house.
Oh wow, you're the first one to like get close. It's in Norway.
Norway. That's it. Norway. Yep.
Yeah, that's
I knew
my
it was
old.
somewhere up in Scandinavia.
Yeah, that's my old office because I was a ballet dancer with the Norwegian National Ballet
Oh, terrific.
for
Yeah.
like 5 years. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing building.
Yeah, and it's just as thoughtfully constructed behind it because like behind it's not as like elaborate, but it's all of the studios and the opera studios and the workshops and all the stages, and so it's just like, yeah, so intelligently made. I mean, they made it in 2008, so they knew what they were doing.
Yep. Yep.
But anyway, but yeah, I'm
Great.
super impressed that do you travel a lot? Oh yeah, I read in your bio that you used to do a lot of traveling
Fair
for.
amount. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did a fair amount. I, seen the Sydney Opera House up close.
Oh, nice.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I flew 3 million miles.
Yeah, I heard that. Goodness, flying to Australia, you'll rack up those points really fast.
You need a life. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually when I hit 2 million, somebody from Delta Airlines asked me, "How does it feel to hit 2 million miles?" And I said, "I feel like I need a life."
You're like, it feels exhausting. You're like, I want to take the longest nap ever.
That's when I decided I was going to retire soon, was when I hit 2 million, because I realized that I was at 1 million on British Airways and American Airlines combined.
Yeah.
Partners, and I did 2 million on Delta. I'm over 2 million now. I'm at 2.3 million or so on Delta.
Yeah.
But the guy, I realized that I was spending just too much time on
Yeah.
the road and not enough at home.
Preparing for it right now.
And that's the thing too with like ballet, it's like you had to always chase the dream. So you never really got to, settle down and like start investing in, a life. Essentially, your whole life is dance. So like that definitely was, at least, I mean, of course, there's other things that are now problems for me, but at least one problem is solved. And I'm like, okay, I'm settling in Southern California. I know that this is where I want to live my life. And like, so yeah, I understand that kind of like feeling when you're just on another airplane and you're just like,
Oh, it's tough.
yeah, I'm
And
alone
ballet-
in an airplane.
Any of the dancing arts are just such a tough line of work.
Yeah.
My sister's made a career out of being a musician, and
Oh, that's incredible.
it's sometimes I wonder how she did it.
Yeah. And I think also like, yeah, you look back on your career and you're just like, I don't even know how I did it, but I'm happy I did. Like, I'm happy I pushed myself. But if I knew that this was the path, I don't know if I would have, had the energy or had the wherewithal to be like, okay, in the next 10 years, I'm going to have to go through all of these trials,
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that's a good lesson anyway, is just to take one thing, one step at a time, because I mean, school ain't easy. Like now that I'm back in school, I'm like, okay, what's due tomorrow? Like,
Yeah. Well, if you don't try it, you never know too.
oh yeah.
It's you just got to give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, then you move on. And if it does work, you're going to move on eventually anyway. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of degrees.
Yeah. But yeah. Is there anything else that you guys need to talk about in terms of logistics or?
I think we'll be okay. Professor Berenger, would it after? So we'll be introducing you.
Sure.
I'm just using verbatim that excerpt that you sent me over
That's-
email.
Yeah, I sure.
Great. And then feel free to take over right after that. I'll introduce you and then go ahead and say hi. Say anything else you want to about yourself, and then go straight into it.
Okay, I got it timed to about 15 minutes. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect.
And
Great.
are we saying your name properly? Is it Berenger?
Berenger. Yeah.
Behringer. Okay, great.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, one letter off and I'd be filthy rich because I'd own a winery in Northern California.
Yeah.
What's the winery?
The
Bear.
Behringer wines.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. No relation. Alas.
And
Yeah. Well, you could always like send an email and be like, hey, make sure to send the check to this address for next month.
Well, actually, our family has a building in Paris. It's the extended family, distant cousins from France and stuff from way back. And technically, I qualify. If I had a French residency, I could live for free in Paris in this building, rent
Oh,
free.
wow.
nice.
It's on the East Bank. Yeah, I know. I visited it.
Tempting.
I was visiting a distant cousin, and she was about to go to Chad as the French ambassador to Chad. And
Oh,
she was
wow.
giving up her apartment, and I said, "Oh, really? You're giving up your apartment?" She said,
In
"Don't
Paris?
even ask. It's it takes about 10 years wait for someone in our family to get a
A
apartment in the
spot
building."
in the
But it's
building.
called the Behringer Building, and it's all everybody has the last name, same last name.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. So it's all of your extended family all in one building.
I don't even know them. I mean, it's
Yeah.
I've only known a couple of the French side, people who actually stayed in France. But it's kind of fun to think that had I thought about it 20, 30, 40 years ago, I could have gotten
Gotten on a list.
free digs for life in at this
Yeah.
building. The building was built in the mid 1800s. And
Especially in Paris because it's so
Family.
expensive there.
yeah, no, it's a gift.
Yeah.
So, oh well,
Huh.
next lifetime.
Yeah.
Oh, and then Mark, whenever we want to start at 1 o'clock, do I just disable the enable waiting room?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they'll just flush in. Are
right.
people showing up?
No, not yet.
Oh, yeah.
So how did they rope you guys into this? Is this a project of the library or which department?
This is a project of my brain, actually.
Yeah,
Oh, you did it.
This is
Okay.
all us, yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
it's because I was on the board for TEDx, which is because
Yep.
we were organizing the first the first independently run TED conference on CSUF campus, and that was supposed to happen this fall. But then we were brainstorming ways to engage our members, and one of the ways was to do like a speech training workshop, like a workshop series. And so we came up with this with the board, which John and Ernesto are the writing consultants for the Titan Talks board. So then we kind of broke away from TEDx, and we have a full board ourselves of 12 members, and we've been putting this all together to make a virtual workshop. But then our intention is to have it as as a live event where all of us get to meet for the workshops on campus. But then more importantly, we get to have a live outdoor presentation, like maybe in front of the humanities building, because
Sure.
they have that natural like steps. And then we could just like have it in the evening, put some lights, and anybody who's coming out of class could just like sit down. We'll have like, as many folding chairs as we can find, and like some food and beverages, that sort of stuff. And just kind of make an event where it's kind of like an open mic, and people know that they can kind of just come and sit and listen to, some speeches about some, because with everything that's going on in the world, I think we need to really listen to each other and hear each other's stories and believe
Sure.
each other. And I think this campus has so much diversity, but we don't really get to benefit
Yeah.
from it.
Hey,
Because,
Yeah.
I know
you
it's
ready?
starting.
that's 1
In the
o'clock.
middle of my pitch, my favorite thing
I know.
to do.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So we have about 5 people in the waiting room right now. Would you like to get started or wait another couple of minutes?
Yeah, okay, I'll just finish my like sentence and then we'll get it started.
Okay.
But anyway, so our vision is to have a live event that people understand is like coming up, and that they know, and they can hear from all the diverse stories of all the, so we can actually benefit from the diversity instead of just kind of seeing the diversity as
Yep.
we walk through campus. So that's kind of our vision eventually. But so anyway, yeah. And so we're so happy that you're like joining us, and And hopefully if we do this in the future and if you enjoy doing this, we'll, reach out to you. And but anyway, let's get it started and
Cool.
see how this goes.
Okay, cool.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
I'll let everybody in. Open the slide.
Okay, it's all up to you, John. I'm gonna keep quiet.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Jen.
Hey, how's it going? Hold on. I have 6 waiting. Do I have to admit everybody individually?
I think you just have to disable the waiting room.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Professor, do you know about this? How this works? If there's a waiting room?
All you got to do is click on each name and they're allowed in. That's how I do it.
Okay.
It
Here we
gives me
go.
a list of names.
Okay, just found it. All right, you ready? Cool. Here we go. Cool. Hey, everybody. Let's wait a couple more minutes for everyone to be able to get on.
No, you're gonna be late. No. Can't wait.
Oh, Alex. Oh, it's good to see you, man.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Doing well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get started. Well, welcome to Titan Talk's second workshop, speech writing, getting pen to paper. Last week in Brainstorming 101 with Mark and Jen, you learned about the benefits of public speaking and practice brainstorming ideas that held meaning to you to work towards your presentation. The goal of today's workshop is to improve your skills in writing compelling and captivating stories and narratives, as well as how to properly find and cite your sources. My name is John, and I'm one of the writing consultants on the Titan Talks team. I graduated from CSUF with a bachelor's degree in psychology last May of 2020. I worked in numerous research labs as an interviewer on campus and would regularly teach fitness classes around the community to a wide range of age groups prior to COVID. I joined Titan Talks through my association with TEDx CSUF as one of their writing consultants. I recognize some of you through your interview processes with TEDx, and I'm excited to hear how your presentations have developed over the past few months.
Hey guys, my name is Ernesto Martinez. I am also a writing consultant for the Titan Talks team. Currently, I am a junior here. I am majoring in business admin with a concentration in operations management. I've yet to meet many of you, but the way I met this program was through Salim, which I know most of you know by now. Him and I are actually in the same program on campus called Business Honors. From there, we became really good friends. And as soon as he mentioned creating this new program, I became very interested, and the rest is history. Now I'm looking forward to getting to know more of you guys personally and help shape your speeches in any way positively. Now enough about myself. Today we have a guest speaker, Professor Walter Berenger. Professor Berenger is a full-time lecturer and the faculty newsroom advisor for the Daily Titan. Before Cal State Fullerton, he retired from the New York Times as senior editor for news operations, and he was previously an editor, columnist, and reporter in Southern California at the San Diego Union, the Evening Tribune in San Diego, the Press Enterprise in Riverside, and the Orange County Register.
While at the Times, Walt covered 13 wars and revolts, several major hurricanes, the 9/11 World Trade Center attack, the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, President Clinton's impeachment and Senate trial, the Olympics, political conventions and presidential inaugurations, with frequent visits to Times foreign bureaus around the world. By his 2016 retirement, he had flown 3 million miles and had worked in more than 65 countries. While attending Cal State Fullerton in the 1980s, Walt was a reporter and managing editor for the Daily Titan. Professor Berenger, feel free to take it away.
Hi, folks. As John said, I spent 27 years at the Times, but not before I spent 2 years, or actually 2.5 years, on the Daily Titan, which gave me all the experience I needed. It wasn't very long after I left Cal State Fullerton, I ended up in New York. And one of the fun things, of course, is traveling around for the Times was I kept running into Cal State Fullerton graduates wherever I'd go. I was getting off a ferry in Albania for the war in Kosovo, and actually getting on the ferry. I was leaving. I'd been there for 2 weeks, and it was time for me to cycle out, have a day off. And I passed Dave Montero of the Los Angeles Times, a Cal State Fullerton grad, coming in on the ramp. I've run into Times people in some pretty strange places. I was down at the Olympics in Sydney in 2000 and ran into Scott French, who covers soccer and high school sports normally in Orange County, and had been sent down to Australia. So Fullerton grads everywhere. One of the things I want to emphasize is I am not a speechwriter myself, but writing news and writing speeches have a lot in common, and we're going to talk about some of that right now. So let me get into share mode here and get PowerPoint into, it's hiding the view that I need. Hang on just a second. I'm going to stop sharing briefly and do this. This takes a little bit of science because the Zoom wants to hide PowerPoint's controls. So, you know, what I'll probably just do is this, just show it this way. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
It says heroes everywhere. Rather than give it in slideshow mode, I'm just going to do it in this mode. This is a little easier. So journalists constantly write about people who are everyday heroes, or sometimes not everyday heroes, but that's one of the things that makes a persuasive news story. So I was going to talk about some of the people I've run into, or in some cases watched from afar, and talk about how we ended up doing news about them. Here is a view from the top of the New York Times building. I took this, we have a great view from the building on a nice day like that day. You can just see forever, or as they say, you can see New Jersey. If you'll notice, there's the Empire State Building in the middle. And the Empire State Building has the antenna tower on the top where they transmit radio and TV from. And it gets very, very small up there. The entire top of the antenna is about the size of a dinner table. So that meant, of course, that we had to send a photographer up there. And this is the view we got looking down. That's looking 1,300 feet down to the street level, 1,250 feet or whatever. Those two guys make a living climbing towers that are sometimes over 1,000 feet high and changing the little red light bulbs that keep airplanes from hitting them. And then they're trained to tune the TV antennas and the radio antennas, which require tuning twice a year. So you can see they've climbed up. They have a bag of light bulbs and screwdrivers, and they sit there in midair. Our photographer, Vince LaForest, took this photo. I took most of the photos in this presentation, but Vince took this one because there's no way I can go up there. He was up so high, the building engineers at the Empire State Building had never been up there. And they ordered prints from the New York Times of this photo because nobody had ever seen a photo taken from the top. Vince was lying over the edge, downward, when he took this photo. I couldn't do that. But these are people who, if you didn't do them, if you didn't have people like this who would risk their lives, you couldn't have broadcasting from tall places like that in New York City. And very tall buildings would be impossible to have because these are the guys that change those light bulbs that keep the planes from hitting them. So the Times did a story about them. And in a way, nobody sees them because people don't, if you look up from the street, even when they're there, you can't see them. They're so small, they're so high up. It's kind of amazing. So these are the kinds of people the Times likes to find and do stories about. Here's another fellow, I ran into him. This is the Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan. The Japanese went crazy over him. Turns out he's nobody. He's not a medal winner. He's not anybody famous. But for some reason, the Japanese fans just loved him. the locals, and they went crazy over him. And he was looking at me and smiling, going, "I don't know why they're doing this." At home in Norway or wherever he's from, nobody paid attention to him. But he got to Japan, and kids, the entire 2 weeks he was there, were trying to get his autograph and have the pictures taken with him. It makes people like that make a great story. They're unintended heroes. They're not heroes like Hercules or somebody from Greek myth. They're just everyday people that for a few weeks in their lives were heroes of thousands of people. Here's, this is Somalia. If you've ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down, this is it. This was the US landings in Somalia. It really wasn't an invasion. We had no intention of taking over the country. The country had no functioning government. So the US military, in conjunction with the Europeans, decided to take food in because people were starving. So we had to cover both sides. This is Donatella covering two soldiers from the United States who had left New York on 1 day's notice. They couldn't even tell their families goodbye. They reported and were thrown on an airplane and ended up in Somalia 24 hours later. This is a machine gun post they set up in Mogadishu. This is not far from where Black Hawk Down happened. A couple days later, we were covering the other side. And here's Donatella covering the starving people. And the heroes here were the people from the Red Cross, the people from United Nations who came in and fed this starving population. Somalia literally had no government. When I got off the airplane there at the international airport, I simply walked and hired a car to take me into town. There was nobody at the airport except people with guns. But there's no government, no functioning, no fire department, no police department, no schools. The buses were running because the bus drivers had stolen their buses and were running them and keeping all the money. But a lot of heroes in a story like that. Here's another one. This happens every 4 years. There's a lot of construction for weeks before this happens. This is the presidential inauguration. It's cold in Washington. It's usually in the 20s. Not my favorite story to cover. I took this from the press gallery. The little blue spot you see there is where the president stands. And all of this, all these thousands of people are there. They don't care about the speeches so much and the singing, although you get famous people singing songs and stuff. They're there for a 30-second ceremony. And this is my picture of it. This is Obama, President Obama. There's Michelle. Biden is, where's Biden? Biden's in the photo. I know he is. I'll find him in a second. I just lost him. This is mostly the House and the Senate leadership. President Clinton is in the audience over here. You can see the back of President Carter's head. Everybody's there, and it's the one time everybody's in one place. Not even for the State of the Union, everybody's in one place. And these people are hopefully going to be our heroes. In 4 years, we'll look back at them and say they're going to be our heroes. Sometimes we don't know for years and years whether that's the case. Here's a helicopter. It just looks like a normal helicopter. I took this at a Russian air base outside of Moscow. This is one of the helicopters used to drop concrete on the melting nuclear power station at Chernobyl. It threatened to poison possibly all of Europe. It was extremely dangerous. It melted down. There were a lot of people who died. The city of Chernobyl had to be evacuated, and many people got cancer for years afterwards. And the Russian Air Force pilots and the Russian Fire Department pilots volunteered to go over the nuclear reactor and dump concrete on top of it. And they used this helicopter. You can see the lead foil in the windows. They tried to line the windows with lead. All these people died within a few days. They landed, they knew they were gonna die. They were told, if you fly this mission, you're gonna die a horrible death from radiation poisoning. And they did, they all did. The crew of this helicopter all died within 48 hours. Horrible death. Those are heroes. They saved tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, possibly even millions of lives at Chernobyl. Terrible nuclear accident, worst nuclear accident in world history. Here's a different kind. This is the Baghdad Zoo. The zookeepers, using their own money, were supporting the animals. What happened was most of the animals were killed in the war. The only ones that survived were the big cats, the lions and the tigers, and some of the apes. And people had stopped paying to go into the zoo. The government stopped paying their salary. So these guys had tried to get side jobs. They were regular zookeepers. They were employed by the zoo, and they used their own money to support the animals. In fact, I tried to give them money while we were there. The reporter and I was an editor, so I didn't get to write the story, but the reporter and I tried to give them money, and they wouldn't take it. They said, nope, this is something we got to do ourselves. We have to support these animals ourselves. But the one fun part I got was I got to hold an albino tiger cub. That was fun. And I got my Cal State Fullerton hat on, of course. But these heroes, what else can you call them? They're keeping these animals alive and using their own money to do it. I'm still in awe of them. They don't accept foreign funds. They think the Iraqis should support their own zoo. It's amazing. This is Afghanistan. This is the stadium where the Taliban executed people in public. You would be forced to attend and watch executions. People were tied to those goalposts. This is the first day that the Afghanistan soccer team was practicing after the Taliban left. You can see they were guarded because it wasn't clear that they weren't going to be attacked. These guys practiced in secret. Had they been caught practicing, they would have been shot by the Taliban. They practiced, and now they came out. This is the first day. This is 2001. They came out and ran laps and started practicing and eventually started playing matches. But this is one of those times you're at the stadium and you know that hundreds of people were executed there. The bullet holes in the goalposts were still there. There was blood on the goalposts. Amazing. U.S. invasion of Iraq. This is Baghdad. This is an Iranian army helmet. Saddam Hussein, the dictator of Iraq, was in a horrible war. Well, they're all horrible, but this one was particularly bad. With Iran for years, they were gassing each other and using poison gas, and it wasn't taking prisoners. They were shooting prisoners as they captured them. And Saddam Hussein took their helmets of the dead Iranian soldiers and paved a street with them. When the U.S. arrived to depose Saddam Hussein in 2003, they wrote their names on the helmets of the Iranian soldiers of the names of the Americans who'd been killed. And this is one, Private Second Class Evans, killed in action, 25 May 2003. We will remember 977th Military Police Company. All these helmets, many of them, I should say, had names. You can see the others have parts of the names. The soldiers wrote the names of all the people killed during the invasion. Quite moving. And eventually they'll just bleach out in the sun. Here's a typical Iraqi. They all get jobs as guards because that's the easiest way to get a job. They're handed it, that's an AK-47, and they become guards, untrained or frequently they're former army. But that's one of the few things you can get a job as in Iraq, even to this day, on a regular basis. This is the Arab Spring, which actually lasted from December of 2010 to December of 2012, roughly. This is the night that President Mubarak of Egypt was deposed. He was a dictator of Egypt. And everybody was going crazy with happiness. It didn't last very long because it turned out he was succeeded by another dictator. But on this night, they thought they were free briefly. They're celebrating, they were stopping the traffic, and everybody's smiling. You can see the policeman in the white shirt down here is smiling. Everybody was happy Mubarak was gone. The whole country was just celebrating. And within a few weeks, it was pretty obvious that they were just going to get another dictator instead. It's very sad. Here is Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans. This is New Orleans underwater. It was pretty darn deep. And that water you can see is kind of greenish. It was not sanitary. A lot of people, rescue workers, got sick from being there. You had to be decontaminated if you touched the water. I had to be hosed off by some National Guards people. You could get really, really sick because there's sewage in there. There's all sorts of fuel, all sorts of crazy stuff floating around in that water. This is Canal Street. If you've been to New Orleans and been drinking in the French Quarter, you know Canal Street. This is what it looked like a few days after Hurricane Katrina. This is about 2 days later. It didn't flood in this part of New Orleans, but the National Guard was called out to guard it. The entire city was evacuated. The entire city. You haven't seen weird until you've entered a major US city and there's nobody there. It was just, still one of the weirdest things I've ever happened to me. But these people came in despite the risk of disease from the water. They came in and protected the city, and the city's been recovering. And last, this one is these little heroes are unintended heroes. This is in what's called the Kabul River Defile in near Kabul, between Kabul and Jalalabad in Afghanistan. It's a very deep canyon. These children get about 2 hours of sunlight a day. That's about all they get. They're in an extremely deep canyon, like the Grand Canyon, way at the bottom. And there's roads, and what they do is they beg truck drivers for money and things. These kids stay alive. The older sister takes care of the younger brother. Now, of course, they've grown up. I don't know where they are. It's been 20 years now, almost 20 years. But these kids were surviving. They survived the Taliban. They survived the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. They survived 3 wars that I can think of. At this age, they had survived 3 wars already. At least the older girl had. I think she was 14 or 13. But she'd survived 3 wars, separate wars in Afghanistan already. I think that's just amazing. So you want to write about people like that too. And when you're writing speeches, you talk about people like that. It's very persuasive, and they're everyday heroes. And that's all I got to say on that. I haven't run out of heroes, but I've run out of time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for Professor Berenger for sharing all those awesome stories and awesome pictures. I'd like to open up a 5-minute Q&A. If anybody has any questions for Professor Berenger, now would be the time.
Maybe I'll get us started with the question. So Professor Berenger, I was wondering, like, what components of a narrative speech, if we're talking about a personal story, make it particularly compelling? Like, what should we focus on?
Well, in the cases of all of these people, there was a high level of risk to their lives. Even those kids at the bottom, there were a lot of kids who just never survived. So they're taking the risk. In some cases, they're forced into it. In some cases, they do it voluntarily. But in the hero, in the monomyth of the hero, they've gone through several of the steps, different steps for different people. But essentially what they've done is they've faced adversity, in some cases, adversity that many people that they were close to didn't survive. You look at the people that hang from the Empire State Building and change the light bulbs. I mean, that's just not sane. I'm sorry, they're used to doing it. But occasionally one of them will fall and get killed. And yet they're still do it. It's one of those jobs that has to be done. Somebody's got to do it. And you just keep paying people more and more money till they do it. But what you want to talk about is the adversity they've overcome. That's typically in news reporting what we do. We look at somebody who's faced adversity or faced some big difficulty, like climbing to the top of the Empire State Building, and you talk to them about maybe the first time they did it and what they felt. And whether they wanted to do it or not. They got to the top and looked around and thought, maybe, now I got to get down. And that's part of being a hero, is getting out of the situation you've gotten into. The hero, the hero myth involves the travel into adversity, but it also involves traveling out of it. And that's also a big story.
And if we fortunately have not been in positions of that level of adversity or risk, we could still find stories in our past about adversity that we faced or risks that we took, and those can make for compelling stories as well.
Oh, absolutely. I tell my 201 students, COM 201, they have to go out and interview somebody. Can't be a relative. And they say, well, who do I talk to? You know, who's got an interesting story? I said, anybody you talk to, if you ask the right questions, is going to have an interesting, compelling story. There's no exceptions. I've seen terrific stories out of my students writing about their barber. It doesn't matter. It's even children sometimes will have a compelling story, like the two kids in the Cobble Defile. It's just a matter of finding the right questions.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Sure.
I have a question for you, Dr. Barringer. I joined a little bit late. I was coming from another meeting. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you visited all these places from the photos. That's a safe assumption, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I do have a question.
Except the top of the Empire State Building.
Okay.
I stopped about 10 floors below.
Oh, you're kidding. Okay, gotcha. Very cool. Well, I have a quick question. I do know a lot of people that have volunteered in the Peace Corps, and they go to all these places that are just riddled with disease and destruction and, corrupt government. And my question to you is, and I know this doesn't relate to speech, but I have to ask, what is just the first thing that comes to your mind? Like what is just the first feeling you have when you land in these places? Like when you went to Afghanistan and you saw these children, and when you see the struggle they're going through, what is the first thing that you feel and think?
Well, part of it is you're disoriented. Every journalist has this problem. They get off, you get off the helicopter, you get off the truck or the bus or whatever it is, and sometimes things are just so bad, all you can do is stand there and look around. And the first time I flew into Afghanistan, well, I've driven across Afghanistan and I've flown across Afghanistan both. The first time you get to a town that's just been blown to atoms, you literally stand there for 10 minutes and take it in. I've got pictures of Afghan towns that are just, look like Berlin in 1945 after the Allies bombed it, just destroyed. You literally have to stand there and take it in because you can't recognize things. You can't see where City Hall is, and you can't see where you can't tell the difference between somebody's house and a factory sometimes that's been blown up. The rubble looks the same. And that's probably what I would say is the first feeling I get quite frequently is you just have to stand there and take it all in for a few minutes and get your bearings.
Very interesting. Thank you. I was just curious. I always hear something different from each person. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
Sure. Anybody else? Leslie said one of the fun. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
When it comes to narrowing down your options to write over something, my problem I've been having is managing the flow of ideas to write about something, I guess, because I feel at moments, like if I have so much to say that I just end up mixing it all up and everything. It takes me like double or 3 times the time that a normal person will require to put together a paper because of the same reason. Is that something that as a journalist, do you ever experience? Is that normal? Is that what it is?
Always. One of the hardest parts of journalism is deciding what you're not going to put in the story. It's quite frequently, you've got to sit down sometimes over dinner and think about, okay, I have just seen 10 things that could each make a good news story. Which is the 1 or 2 I'm going to concentrate on. And a lot of journalists punt, and what they'll do is they come back from a major news event like this and they'll write a book. So they have room to put all the other stuff that they didn't cover. Quite a few books you see written by journalists are in fact expansions after they've written a story and they had 20 times the material that they thought they had. When you're giving a speech, it's the same thing. You've got to pick one or two items to focus on or you're going to overwhelm your listener, just like you're going to overwhelm a reader. And so you try to pick the one thing that's the most newsworthy for us in journalism, or the most relevant thing that's, you know, if you have some other avocation, and expand on that and allow that to be sort of an entree to the bigger picture that you can't explain to them.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Professor Berenger. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for Q&A. So we'll be moving into our next section.
Thank you, Professor.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I'll hang out for a little while.
Awesome.
Okay. Can everybody see that okay? Cool. All right,
Yes.
so perfect. So today we'll be talking about the hero's journey. And as Professor Berenger emphasized, heroes can take all shapes and forms. So the hero's journey is used traditionally to make a more captivating character arc. It superimposes 12 steps over the traditional 3-act structure that a lot of successful movies like Star Wars and Wizard of Oz appear to follow. However, the structure isn't just limited to stories. You can also use it to present your information or bolster statistics in an anticipating and compelling way. So the very first step of the hero's journey, there's 12, is the ordinary world. Now, this is your time to set the stage. So where are we now? And what's normal for us or our protagonist? Then we'll find a call to adventure. Here's where we break out of our comfort zone. There's a challenge or a problem we can no longer ignore. Now, a couple examples of this could be like Shrek leaving his swamp, or Anakin Skywalker leaving behind his parents to become a Jedi. And this is really where you set off to begin your transformative journey, whether you knew it at the time or not. But the change, there's always resistance to that change, and that brings us to the refusal of the call. In a persuasive presentation, this is your chance to play devil's advocate and present some of the opposing data. In a story, this could be our protagonist digging their feet in and showing reluctance to begin their journey. Then we meet the mentor, step 4. In this step, we get a personal trainer. Now this mentor, whether it be a wizard or a current activist, will give us or our protagonist the tools they need to advance into the next stage, crossing the threshold. In your story, this is where you can talk about that professor or that teacher that gave you the extra push to go chase your goals. This is the parent who supported you or the friends that held you up. Then we come to step 5, crossing the threshold. Now, at this point, we're committed to the journey we're on. Shrek is approaching the castle, Luke is learning the ways of the Force, stuff like that. This is really the beginning of the meat of your presentation. And then this is the next stage. Test allies and enemies is going to be the longest stage most of the time for us or our hero. We're thrust into a world of the unknown. Harry Potter fought a troll, falls off a broomstick and almost dies and gets lost in a forbidden forest. Marlin in Finding Nemo meets reformed sharks, swims through a jellyfish field, and is swallowed by a whale. In a presentation, this is where you can present your message that you want your listeners to take home with them. The next step, approach to the inmost cave. Now, the inmost cave is less about being in the cave, but approaching it. Whether it's the dragon's lair or one's own negative feelings, this is the stage that's essential in preparing us to grow in order to defeat our villain or conquer our hurdles. And next, we have the ordeal. This is where we're tried and tested. We've hit rock bottom, and if we or you survive it, we'll emerge transformed. These are the things we have to do to conquer the challenge. And then we get the reward, step 9, or seizing the sword. This is where we see a light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope. Luke rescues Princess Leia, captures plans for the Death Star. Or in a persuasive presentation, this can be where you show what you're doing to help the cause. This is what you're doing to back the message that you're presenting. And then the road back. That light at the end of the tunnel might be a little bit further than we thought. Now, our hero must return to the ordinary world, and they have to deal with the aftermath of their actions, facing even more danger. And then step 11, This is the true climax of the story, the resurrection. This is where the last test is met. Sort of like a final exam. We're tested once more to see if we really learned the lessons we gained from the ordeal. These are the final obstacles we have to face. And finally, in the last step, return with the elixir. This is the final step of our journey. We return home a different person than when we started out. And we'll return with this elixir, whether that be a physical object or a lesson we learned along the way. And for those who are giving presentations meant to motivate their audience, you want the listener to feel like they've returned with the elixir, maybe a new perspective or an insight that they hadn't had before. So, as Jen said last week, a story has power. Stories can connect, persuade, motivate, and encourage us. A story can spread ideas and inspire us to think from a new perspective. Last week in your workshop with Mark and Jen, you brainstormed a story or a topic that matters to you, and I know for a lot of you TEDx speakers, you have that. Now today, we're going to practice speaking about that topic using this Here's Journey monomyth. So in breakout rooms, you'll be practicing talking about your topic or story that you thought of last week or that you have ready using this Here's Journey structure. Now, it's okay if your story doesn't line up exactly with this structure. The goal is really to think of different ways to share and present your information. And if you prefer just to talk about like maybe 3 or 4 key points in your story that line up with 1 or more of the stages, then that's okay too. And I'll send all you guys a link to all the 12 steps and all the descriptions that I was giving you. So if you need to reference back to it, then that'll be okay too. And then when we come back, Ernesto will be showing you how to cite and source your information. And then have fun. I'm gonna go ahead and stick you guys in some breakout rooms. Copy and paste this. Okay, so I just shared you that link. That should give you access to the 12 steps of the hero's journey. The breakout room will take about 15 minutes. Then I'll give you guys a 1-minute reminder right before I take you back. Cool.
I'll see y'all later. Take care. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming again.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody.
John?
Mhm.
So we just download that link and then we have the whole steps. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if you click on that link, it'll bring you to a Google Doc with all 12 steps and descriptions that I gave for each of those steps.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
John, quick question. I was unfortunately not able to come to the last workshop and haven't had time to catch back on it. So I don't really have a topic yet. Should I stick around and still come to the group, or should I take that time to actually work on my own topic for now and then maybe join the next workshop when I'm a little bit more prepared?
Definitely. I think you should definitely come into the breakout rooms. You don't necessarily have to have a topic, but I think it would be really helpful to hear what other people had to say.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone else have any questions before I let you go?
Should be everyone.
Mhm.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed your activity. I'm just going to be finishing this off today with this last topic, site information and building credibility. So next slide, please. Okay, so first off, before I go into how to cite information during your oral speeches, I'll get into why it's important that we do this. Well, first off, it gives proper credit for ideas because you don't want to be plagiarizing off of other people's work. And also, citing sources helps your listeners know where the information came from for their own benefit. Because, you know, nowadays fact checking is trending. So you don't want to be, you know, wrong and get fact checked. So, and also lastly, citing sources actually builds your credibility as a speaker. Your sources back up what you're saying. Now, we understand that for most of you, you won't be using outside resources because often your speeches come from a personal background. But for those of you looking into persuasive speeches and for ways to build credibility, citing sources while giving your speech goes a long way to gain the trust of your audience. Now, there's 2 ways to gain trust, ethos and logos. Ethos is more about your own character and like what your own personal experiences that you've gone through. And logos is the other side where it's like outside information, which is what I'm getting more into, the logo side. Next slide, please. Okay. So now one really cool thing you can do with using sources is you can even opt to start your speech with a quote or a sample from a book. This is one way to create relatability and establish a narrative early on. So, oftentimes people struggle with how to start a speech. You can start like a million different ways, right? But if you choose to, use a quote, then it kind of really establishes that narrative early on, and people can connect with your story or can see where you're going through to like early on. And like, for example, I use one of my favorite quotes. Let's say I want to start a speech like this. So it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, from Anonymous, because I couldn't find the exact person because it's like widely used all around. But you would just start off like that, it's kind of the quote, and then the speaker, and that's how you would start that. And like kind of in the image you see in front of you, the slide, for an article, you say like the name, publication, and date. And also for a book, this is from one of my favorite books, is if you want to reference a book, it'd be something like In the Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. The author says, and then you go on from there. But yeah, I mean, that's basically all I have for this slide and for this part of the segment. And all I really recommend you guys is to kind of play with the idea of using an outside source, a quote, statistics, and kind of finding ways to build credibility versus just using a personal story. All right, well, yeah, that will be the end of our presentation. Thank you guys for coming. If you have any questions, feel free to stick around and ask away.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
And see you next week at 1 o'clock.
Sure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Bye. Thank you. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to stick around and ask us.
All for small talk.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, John, would you be able to put me and Chandra into a breakout room just so that we could continue the conversation?
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay, and then maybe make me a co-host so that if you need to leave, then the whole thing isn't,
Gotcha. Let me.
yeah.
Actually, I think you are a co-host.
Oh, I'm still co-host?
Yeah, I
Okay.
never removed you.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay,
Okay. Cool. And then you guys are in breakout room number 5.
I don't understand breakout rooms. I don't understand how to do them.
It's cool. I'm figuring this out as I go.
Okay, that's great.
are you able to, okay, there we go. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, and if I assign you to a room and you don't want to go, sorry guys. If you don't want to go to that room, feel free not to.
That's funny. Okay, do we just have board left? This is just board, right?
You might want to stop recording.
Ah, thank you.